This podcast is produced by Midnight Productions. Follow us on Twitter at Midnight Mix. Today we'd like to start this podcast by offering our condolences to the family and friends of jockey Liam Treadwell, who sadly left us all far too early this week. Our thoughts at this time are with his family and friends. Liam was just 34 years of age. Hello and welcome to the Ultimate Racing Podcast. My name is Chris Barnett, I'm your host and will guide you through as we look forward to one of the biggest races in the English race calendar. That's the Derby at Epsom, a little later this year on Saturday, July the 4th, and it's behind closed doors. Will that make a difference? We're going to find out in a few minutes time whether it will or not, and to who perhaps. And to join us to talk about some of the runners, the ones that really count and the ones that you'll be looking at yourselves, we've got race analyst Terry Norman. Terry, thanks for joining us as we look forward to this year's Derby, later than scheduled, as we know. English King, the favourite after winning at Lingfield for Ed Walker. He's now got Frankie on board, but is he a worthy favourite?
I'll tell you what, before we get into the actual rudiments of the form, Chris, should we start with a stat? You like stats. Everyone likes stats.
Give me a stat. I love a stat.
Right. If English King wins this year's Derby, he will be the lowest rated Derby winner since, let me go through it, make sure I've got this right. Rule of the World in 2013 was rated 109. And when Wings of Eagles caused that massive surprise at 66-1 in 2017, they were both rated 109. English King is rated 112. On the other side of the coin, if Kamiko wins and supplements his 2000 Guinness success, he will be the second highest rated winner of the Derby in the last 10 years, with the only horse that's been rated higher was Camelot on 121. Kamiko is rated 119, and that's the same rating as what Australia was when he won in 2014. How's that to start?
Good stats like that. So English King, what's he, 112?
He's 112 now, on the back of winning the Lingfield Derby trial. Now, you know what I'm like. I analyse things to death, and as a consequence, I get intrigued by other people's opinions. Now, I've read in various quarters that English King's victory in the Lingfield Derby trial was rock solid. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as I know, the definition of rock solid is you can't pick holes in it. Well, that's not the case with English King. You can. And the reason you can is, well, for one main reason. He beat a horse called Berkshire Rocco, who went on to finish second in the Queen's Vase. Berkshire Rocco got beaten, or English King won, depending which way you want to look at it, by just under 3 lengths, 2 3/4 lengths, beating Berkshire Rocco over 1.5 miles on a similar track. Now, Lingfield's not exactly the same as Epsom, but I think the rule of thumb is people assume if you can run Lingfield, you can run Epsom. Anyway, Berkshire Rocco then goes to finish his second in the Queen's Vase to a horse called Santiago. Santiago beat him exactly the same distance as English King. Santiago was rated 94. Now, even if you take it logically that English King's going to improve, which it will do, I do not dispute the fact that English King is going to improve, but you have to take it on what they've done, not what you think they're going to do. English King ran to 111, 112, I think I had it. I think the Racing Post had it 111, and the official handicap has got him at 112. As I've just read out with that stat earlier on, invariably in a good year, English King wouldn't even be favourite. The one thing he's got in his favour, which is what we move on to the next point, is I'm not saying English King can't win, because obviously he can, but he is underpriced on what he's actually done so far. What's in his favour? It's not a very good Derby. And it's not a very good Derby for one main reason is Kamiko, who is by far the best horse in the race, the ratings prove that, 119, he may not stay. Now, he's got a very, very similar profile to the other Qatar horse that ran in it 2 years ago. Roaring Lion, they're both by Kitten's Joy. They're both owned by Qatar Racing. And if you look at the form lines that they followed at 2, they're very similar. Kamiko got beaten in a Royal Lodge at Newmarket. Roaring Lion won it. Kamiko won the Racing Post Trophy, or the Futurium, whatever it's called now. Roaring Lion was second. Roaring Lion got beaten in the 2000 Guineas when he finished fourth. He finished fourth and third in the Derby. Kamiko won the 2000 Guineas. Now he moves on to the Derby. The difference between the two horses is that Kamiko has got much quicker sectional times, which means now you have to try and analyse whether you think Kamiko will stay. Now, look, obviously I'm involved with connections, so I am saying this from the point of view that the way the season has gone now, they've got no real options, because the Eclipse was an option if you don't go for the Derby, but that's now been taken away because of the virus, because they've now made it 4-year-olds and upwards, so 3-year-olds can't run in it. So it's the logical thing to do. Do I think it will stay? No, I don't. Can it still win? Yes, it can. And the only way it can win is if the Derby is not truly run. Now, I know what you're going to say, same as everyone else says. When's the last time you had a Derby that wasn't a strong gallop when Aidan is going to have plenty of runners? That is the problem. If you could guarantee that they would go slowly for the first half a mile, then you would fancy Kamiko. But if they go really hard from the kick-off, listen, you know what Aidan's like when it comes to tactics. He's going to be aware that Kamiko is the quickest horse in the race. He's the best horse in the race. The ratings prove that. The fact that Kamiko's won a classic also proves that. But I just fear that he will stay. I mean, Roaring Lion was travelling better than anything in Massar's Derby, and he palpably never got home. And I fear the same thing could happen here. The key for this race, Chris, more than anyone else, is Aidan, because if you look at his entries, you kind of sit there and you go, well, surely he's running the wrong horses in this race. Because I kind of look at the ones that, I mean, look, Ballydoyle are very good on their Twitter feed. They don't often tell lies. And if you look at the ones that they're intending to run, they're going to run Russian Emperor, who won the King Edward VII, I think he did.
Hampton Court.
Right. Hampton Court, sorry. Mogul, who basically should have run better in the King Edward VII and didn't. Vatican City, which I must admit, I'm amazed, because he ran really well in the Irish 2000 Guineas against Siskin, but he's not bred to get any further than a mile and a quarter. And Mythical's probably in there to ensure that there's a stronger gallop. I am surprised that they're not running Santiago, because I thought he was very impressive in the Queen's Vase. Tiger Moth, I thought they might take a chance with, because I know he got beaten by his he beat his stable companion last time out. And even Iberia, who I thought he's going to come onto his own when he runs in the mile and a half, he might have gone to Epsom. So Aidan, I mean, Mogul they like. I mean, he's a full brother to Japan. And, I mean, Japan finished third in the Derby, and then I think he finished fourth in the Arc to Voltgeist. So I can see why they probably want to try him there, because a mile and a half, he's a full brother to Japan as well. But he just runs so badly in the King Edward VII. Yeah. I mean, I get that Aidan said he probably needed to run. He's a very stuffy horse. But you've got to be honest, he didn't run very well. I mean, he was a short price favourite. With respect to pole driver, I mean, his form is solid, but you wouldn't say it's Derby winning form. I just can't get my head around it. So what you come back to with English King, he stays, yeah, no problem. He's got a high cruising speed, yes, he's got that as well. He's won on a similar kind of track. But his form, if you take it literally on what he's achieved on the track, he would probably be third or fourth in terms of his overall form. But he's improving, and you know he's going to handle the track. And obviously the Tory's going to ride him. Do
you think that Aidan should be running Santiago in the English Derby and Vatican City in the Irish version?
Well, I wouldn't run Vatican City over a mile and a half, because I don't think he's a mile and a half horse. I mean, right. I would run Mogul if I was Aidan, like I'm telling Aidan.
Yeah. We'll just get him on the phone in a minute.
I would run Mogul. I would have run Mogul in the Irish Derby, and assuming that the flat galloping track would suit him better. And I think Santiago showed so much speed. I mean, his final 2 furlong sectional, by the way, was akin to what English Keith did and the race at Lingford. I know one's downhill and one isn't, but in terms of times, I mean, at the end of the day, you can only compare the 2 times. I think Santiago would have been ideally suited. Now, look, we won't know until Monday, because Monday will be when the entry stage comes through. He may throw a curveball and suddenly enter Santiago. If Santiago was entered in the Derby on Monday, then the price that he is at the moment, which is huge, I think you can get around about 25, 33 to 1 in some places, it would be incredible. I mean, Do you know the other curveball that come as well? I mean, because it's been gathering momentum in the last few days that Palace Pier, amazingly, may be entered. Now, considering that he won the St James's Palace Stakes, considering he's by Kingman, you would kind of sit there and go, he beat Pinatubo for a turn of foot. They've got to be bonkers, aren't they? They've got to be mad to even consider. But the talk I heard in Newmarket yesterday, and I know a few work riders around Newmarket area, they are seriously considering, giving it a go. And to me, I know if you go on the breeding side, which I only use when it comes to siblings and people like that, on the dam side, you've got Nayef in there. But on the sire side, you've got Kingman. And the amount of speed he showed in St James's Palace, you kind of think, they've got to be mad. And even if you go on the sibling side, you kind of think, well, look, John Gosden's a genius. For my money now, he is the best trainer by 100 miles in the country. He knows what he's doing. And then you look at the siblings. Tajweed, which was by Invincible Spirit, that ran over 1.25 miles but barely got it. And Bin Dahir, who was by Exceeding Excel, whose dosage figure's a lot lower than Kingman's, but not by much. I mean, one's 6.7, the other one's 8.6. That was a 7 furlong horse. I would imagine if Palace Pier runs, then William Buick would ride it. But it's just a fascinating concept of the race, because the horses that, if say for instance Palace Pier ran, then on ratings you've got the two probably highest rated 3-year-olds in training at the moment running over a trip that neither of them looks set to stay.
But Kamiko can win if the race is run to suit. But as you said, it's probably not going to be run to suit, is it?
Yeah. I mean, if you got one of the slowest run derbies in history, then Kamiko would probably be favourite at the top of the hill. But like I said to you at the start of this conversation, how many times do you have a derby that's not truly run? And if Aidan is aware, which he is, tactically, he covers every single base, he is not going to let this race develop into a sprint from the top of the hill. He just won't. The interesting factor is it's probably Aidan's weakest renewal in terms of trying to win the race for years. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of it, Chris, but he's actually won 6 of the last 9 derbies, Aidan.
Yeah, he's won 6 since Galileo won it in 2001.
Yeah, so he's won 6 of the last 9. So, I mean, that stands out. So, but this is probably his weakest challenge for a while. But there's so many potential, like I said, curveballs. I mean, Russian Emperor, he looked like a horse that wanted further, but does he? He's not. I mean, just because he's by Galileo doesn't naturally assume that he wants 1.5 miles.
No, but the way that he ran at Ascot, he needed every yard of the 1.25 miles to get up, didn't he? And he was being pushed along. All it came from the back to the front. I thought an extra couple of furlongs were doing really good. Yeah,
but see, I look at it the other side of the coin. I think he won that race because he had more speed. Right. I think he just run down. I mean, look, he's finished second over 1.25 miles on his return when he ran at Leopardstown. I think it was behind Cormoran. I'm not sure. I think it was anyway. If it's not, it was another Aidan horse that beat him. But if you again go, I mean, if you want to be pedantic, and then you go through and look at his pedigree, I mean, the only other one apart from the half brother is the full brother, or the full sister, I should say, Pacific Ocean, and she was a miler. So, I mean, I don't think he'll stay. I don't. I definitely don't think. I think Russian Emperor's too quick as well. I mean, Military March, ironically enough, he had all the credentials that you want. I mean, Australia got beaten in the Guineas, running on, looking like he wanted 1.5 miles. And Military March did exactly the same thing. He won on soft ground over 1 mile on his last run at 2. He stepped up in grade for the 2,000 Guineas, got completely outpaced, and then done all the best late work. He had the actual quickest last final furlong sectional, apart from Kamiko, over a trip that was palpably too short for him. But he now doesn't run. So it adds more interest to the race. I mean, I think English King is favourite on the back of, he's won over 1.5 miles already, and visually it looked very good. But if you break down the form, he's not rock solid by any means. And
highest ground's not going to go. That won a 7 furlong race at Leicester. It wasn't really ever in the scene, was it?
Well, he won at Leicester, and then he won on his return when he beat that Volkernik. But I think you've got to take the quotes from the owner, because the owner was very quick to rule it out, saying that it's going to come too quick. he's a nice horse, and he'll go on softer ground as well. So I think there'll be bigger totals for him. I mean, I'm not sure where Sir Michael will go with him, but I can see why they think the race is going to come too soon. So there's no rush. I mean, he's going to be a horse, whatever he is this year. I know it's a cliche, but he will be a better horse next year at 4. So he could be a King George horse next year quite easily. So there's no rush. And the other one you've got to consider as well, by the way, you were saying about Aiden's horse coming from a long way behind Russian Emperor to win the Hampton Court. But Highland Chief, I know he only won a handicap, but his final 2 furlong sectional times, if you bear in mind that the ground was completely different, is actually on point with what Russian Emperor did. And bearing in mind that his half-sister won over 1.5 miles, there's every chance that he's overpriced. The only thing that slightly concerns me with Highland Chief, now the weather forecast, I mean, I thought the weather forecast for next week was hot again, and someone pointed out to me this morning there are a couple of days when it might rain quite heavily, is that most of Highland Chief's strongest form has been on soft ground. I mean, it's soft when he won at Ascot the other day, or when he won his maiden at Newbury on his debut, it was soft. He finished 3rd behind Pinatubo in the Chesham Stakes last year. That was on good ground. So he's never actually run on any surface faster than, or quicker than good.
Yeah.
So what he would be like on fast ground, bearing in mind he also hung very badly left on ground that he liked at Ascot, you would just worry, coming down them gradients on quicker ground, how he would handle it. But in terms of his form, yes, he's got to advance, and he did only win a handicap, but he's a progressing horse. His speed over the last 2 furlongs was pretty quick. And one thing is, Chris, more than most in this field, he's almost certain guaranteed to stay.
Do you think because we've had such a different prep this year with all the lockdown, etc., that there could really be a massive surprise in this year's Derby? Just something just comes out of nowhere and surprises us all.
Oh, without a doubt. And as Aidan alluded to, it's definitely messed up his plans, because a lot of his horses would have had 2 or 3 runs by now. And some of them are coming into it on the back of 1, as in Mogul, if it runs. I think Mogul is a potential massive improver. I mean, he ran so badly at Ascot. It was just too bad to be true. And bearing in mind, when he got beaten by Kamiko in the Group 1 race at Newcastle, it was on Tapita. And Galileo's have got a terrible record on Tapita, and yet he got within 3.5 lengths of Kamiko over a mile. And he's palpably going to be suited by the extra half a mile. I mean, I think Mogul's a massive price.
It's about 8 to 1, isn't it? It's rated 110-ish, I think.
Yeah, but with the potential to improve. I mean, bear in mind, Japan came in on the back of winning 1 race as well. I mean, he's been well backed. He's 10 to 1 actually in places. You're right. I just wonder though. You can sometimes forgive a horse 1 bad run. I mean, Japan didn't run very well in the Juddmonte, and then he come out and improved significantly next time out in the Derby. I mean, in the Derby, if you remember rightly, he came down the outside. He looked like he was going to win before Anthony Van Dyke come and done him. So if Aidan is of the opinion that Mogul will improve significantly for that return run in the King Edward VII, then you've got to respect that. And potentially he got much more to go forward with. Would I back English King at the price that he is now? No. Do I think English King can win? Yeah, of course I do. But the thing is that surprises me when people just jump on the bandwagon and go, his form's rock solid. It's not rock solid. It's improving.
Yeah.
But it's not rock solid, is it?
No, it's by no means. Okay, well, it's all takes place on Saturday, July the 4th, so we look forward to that at Epsom. It's going to be strange, isn't it, Terry, with no one there? I don't know if the owners will be allowed in. I don't think they will back at this stage. I know in Ireland they're considering letting some owners in. But you know a lot of people in racing. How have the owners, trainers, well, owners probably not so great, but jockeys felt about the way the lockdown has ended and they're allowed to race again? How have they taken it with empty courses?
I just think they're pleased to be racing again. I mean, to begin with, I think they found it a bit strange because it's not what they're used to. But in effect, if you take away the crowds, because I know riding winners at Royal Ascot, a lot of jockeys said it weren't the same feeling. But you can't take away in the record books that you've got a Royal Ascot winner. But just changing subject, and I'm just digressing from what you're saying, but But the other thing as well, the lack of crowds has actually helped, is the horses. Because some horses, like for instance with Kamiko, he gets very revved up. The fact that there's no crowds now going to be at Epsom on July the 4th, that's going to be a massive help to him. I mean, if you remember years ago, Andrew had a really fancied horse, an Eichler horse called Bonfire.
Remember.
He had run really well in the trials, and he got onto the course, and he absolutely blew his mind with the crowds and the atmosphere. And Jimmy Fortune was riding him, and he went down to the start like a 5 furlong sprinter. And by the time he got there, his race had gone.
Yeah.
And off the top of my head, just proves that I'm not double-checked this because I've just thought of it. I think he was like third or fourth favourite to win the race, and he ran no sort of race at all. And it does affect horses because you bearing in mind, the Epsom Downs is open to the public, you don't have to pay, and then you've got the crowds and everything else. The atmosphere with the weather just used to be electric, and some horses just couldn't cope. So look, everyone wants racing back with owners going racing because that's why owners pay bills, they want to go. But I think everybody within racing is just A, happy that it's back on track, B, it's gone, touch wood, as smooth as silk. There's been no issues, no problems. No jockeys got injured to test the theory that you don't want to tax the National Health Service. I just think it's gone as well and as smoothly as you could possibly do. And you've got to tip your hat to the BHA. They have done this so brilliantly and they've handled it so smoothly that, in effect, if you didn't know there was no people there, because you wouldn't even know there was a lockdown.
No, that is true. It has been handled particularly well, and everyone's really enjoying it. Just this is the final point then. If Kitten's Joy could win the Derby as a sire, what would that do for him? Because just one about everything else. Hasn't got many winners over 12 furlongs, but goodness me, Ken Ramsey would be over the moon, wouldn't he? The owner of Kitten's Joy.
I think it's an understatement. He'll be over the moon if you get a 2,000 Guineas winner and a Derby winner in the same season. It will be phenomenal. Look, for obvious reasons, I love to think that Kamiko will win. For my own professional opinion, I think it's doubtful he will stay, but I totally get why connections are giving it a go. There is only one Derby. And if you get beaten, this horse is going to have a major career over a mile and a quarter. I mean, I was surprised that he was good enough in terms of his rating to win the Guineas, but the fact that he's won the Guineas and he's going to be even better over a mile and a quarter. I mean, this is a serious horse. I mean, look, Chris, he may get away with it. Najicki never stayed a mile and 6 and still managed to win the St. Ledger because he was so good. I mean, like I said, right at the start, and I'll repeat it for people who've just fast-forwarded it thinking, let's get to the bloody end.
Who would do that, for goodness sake? Come on.
Oh, plenty.
No.
Kamiko's rating of 119 is only £2 lower than Camelot's. It's higher than Massa. Massa was rated 117. Anthony Van Dyke was rated 118. Golden Horn, would you believe, was only rated 118. And like I said, Australia was rated on par 119. And Australia couldn't win the Guineas. Albeit, before people start shouting down the phone line, Australia is bred to get a mile and a half, or was bred to get a mile and a half. I accept that. But people underestimate how good Kamiko is. He is a classic winning horse who's got a load of speed, who's got a lot of class, will appreciate the fact there's no crowds, but obviously there is that nagging doubt that he's going to be too quick for the Derby, but who knows?
Well, that's it for the Ultimate Racing Podcast, Episode 1, The English Derby. My thanks goes out to race analyst Terry Norman for joining us and browsing through the field. We'll be back with Episode 2, Glorious Goodwood, towards the end of July, so make sure you subscribe and follow us and you'll get that podcast automatically, or just go to us on Twitter. You can follow us there at Midnight Mix. Thanks very much for listening. We'll see you again soon.